Injuries have been coming for quite some time for West Ham. We've talked about it quite a fair bit on this channel. I've said myself, and I know many people have as well. I'm not the only person saying it. Is that we're not rotating the squad enough, and we're risking so much injury in the squad. It's deja vu. It's the same as what happened last season. Last season was slightly different because we didn't have a big squad. David Moyes had his hands tied a little bit, although that was down to him because he didn't invest in January. I'm not going to go on about that, but this season, you can kind of see that players are starting to look a bit exhausted now. We're coming towards the end. It's been a very busy season, and not a very good one either. Apart from obviously on the European stage, it's been great. Domestically, pretty poor. But it's been a long, hard season, and you're just starting to see it. You can see the players are tired. We're struggling. Inevitably, injuries are going to start happening, and now we are in a position where we've got some injury issues. So obviously, we know about Gianluca Scamacca. We've talked about him. He's out for the rest of the season. It's unsure whether he's going to play for West Ham again. I still think he will personally, but who knows? Who knows? But the main top two at the moment that are sort of the people want to know about and want to get some idea of what's happening with are Kurt Zouma, who injured his ankle against Crystal Palace. And then you've got Vladimir Coufal, who came off of a hamstring injury in the loss to Manchester City. So, first of all, I'm actually going to be honest with you. This is quite a good, positive video. I'm really surprised by this. I'm like most fans. I always think the worst. I think they're probably out for the rest of the season. You know, especially Zouma. I'm pretty. I was certain of that. However. The news coming out from Zouma appears to be quite positive. Actually, it doesn't seem to be so bad. So, from what we understand, and this is coming from ex-WHU employee on Patreon, as always, www.patreon.com/the West Ham Way. If you haven't seen it already, go and check it out. So he has provided an update on it. Now, it appears that although that the issue was, well, first of all, that it's not broken. That was their first concern. How bad is this injury? They strapped it all up and they had to get it scanned. And then what we heard back was that the scan was going to be a little bit delayed because of the swelling. Let's be honest, these things don't sound good. You're thinking he's not going to be playing again. However, it appears that the injury actually isn't as bad as first feared. David Moyes himself has kind of played it off a little bit and said, well, we're not going to put a timescale on Kurt. And I don't blame him for that. I don't blame him for saying that. But we know David Moyes is very coy when it comes to injuries. You remember he did this actually about Zouma when I think he was playing Frankfurt. I believe it might have been the Frankfurt game. And would said, oh, yeah, no, he won't be playing. He won't be available. And he was starting. So he does tend to play some mind games when it comes to injuries at times. But what we're hearing about Kurt Zouma is that he actually could be playing in the Premier League again this season, and he could be back as soon as Leeds. So he's only going to look to miss a couple of games. Now, look, I don't know how true this is. For me, when you're looking at the outside, when you saw the state he was of coming off that pitch, you're hearing that these two, the ankle was too swollen to even look at by the medical team. You're thinking, really, a couple of weeks? I'm not sure about that. But what I am starting to believe is that Zouma will probably be back at the very least at the final, if we make it to the final of the Conference League. That is what I'm taking from it. I spoke to X himself, actually. We was having a bit of a catch up, and I did ask about Zouma. And that was exactly what I'm telling you now. It basically is, at the moment, looking a bit better than first feared. It's not as bad, and he could well be playing again this season in the Premier League. But that's still very up in the air. They're not putting a definitive time on it. But let's be honest, this is much better news than what we were hearing originally, which was it looks like his season's over. So it looks like we could back in the best possible. Let's say the best case is he'll be back for the Leeds game. That's really, really good news, and I'm sure you'll be joining me in the delight of that. I mean, even if he doesn't make the Leeds games, even if he doesn't play in the Premier League this season, if he can come back and play some part in Europe, especially if we make it to that final, then that's a big addition for us and a big boost. Now, on to Vladimir Coufal. Hamstring injury. We all saw him go off. I mean, the second you see them pull up with a hamstring, you know straight away that's 2 to 4 weeks out. I think that's the case with Coufal. However, again with Coufal, it appears it's probably on the lesser side. From what we understand it's not as bad again, like Zouma, not as bad as first feared. It's looking like it's going to be a couple of weeks. So again, it could well be that we have Coufal back for Premier League football this season, which is pretty good. I mean, that's really, really good. But I will say, though, David Moyes has really got to start being careful because it's not going to be long until we lose a vital player. I mean, if we can't keep playing the same players game in, game out. I spoke about it on a video actually regarding this sickness situation about David Moyes. Now, our lot, what I understand from the West Ham way patron, i.e., from ex-WH employee, that they are genuine. The players were ill. But it's quite interesting, David Moyes' press conference over it. He kind of looked a bit funny about it. Now, I wonder if he's just laughing because of the questioning about whether the players really were unwell, but you do wonder. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, my gut feeling is that he probably, they are genuine. They are genuine. They weren't well, and they had to come away. But it does mean, though, that we are going to have a fresher Declan Rice, Thomas Souček, and a Gerd for the Manchester United game because they are, going to be fresher for this. Now, this is actually going to be out. When is this going out? This is going to be before the Manchester United game. Yeah. So there's fingers crossed for that. So I'm quite, let's see what happens. I'd like to think that the players that have been unwell will come back fresher, looking good. But overall, I'm really pleased with these injury updates. I've been very convinced that Kurt Zouma's season's over. When I saw him walk off that pitch, I thought he's done, which would have been a cruel blow. But it looks like it actually, again, it's not too bad. And West Ham, might just be getting away with this.